The Paranormal Podcast is brought to you by Gaia, the streaming TV service dedicated to exploring the cutting edge of metaphysics, ancient wisdom, and the unexplained. 5,000 years of wisdom on demand. Get your first month for only 99 cents. Visit Gaia.com/Jim. That's Gaia.com/Jim to see what's happening on the largest consciousness media streaming platform in the world. Thanks, Gaia.
This is the Paranormal Podcast with Jim Harold.
Welcome to the Paranormal Podcast. I am Jim Harold and so glad to be with you today. And it is a red letter day because today is the 500th episode of the Paranormal Podcast. And I just want to say thank you to each and every one listening, whether you started listening way back in 2005 or you just started listening today. I really appreciate it. Now, people say, Jim, what are you going to do for your 500th episode? And on one hand, I think we need to do the same kind of show that got us to 500 episodes and talk about some great paranormal stuff and paranormal subjects. So we're going to do that. We're going to talk about the Mandela effect with Stasha Eriksen, which I'm very fascinated by. We're going to talk to Star Casas about old-fashioned conjuring, which I'm not much of a conjurer, but I'm always interested in learning about these sorts of things. But then what we're going to do, that way you get your normal show, but the third segment of the show is just going to be kind of me talking about the last 12 years. And I did an episode years ago about some of my thoughts on the paranormal for the campfire, and that was very popular, so I thought I would kind of reprise something like that and talk to you about some of my ideas in case you ever wondered what I thought and what I think about the paranormal. But first, let's get a couple of great interviews in because that's what the Paranormal Podcast is. And if we didn't do that, it really wouldn't be an episode of the Paranormal Podcast. So let's start with one of my favorite topics. Is it Berenstein? Is it Berenstein? Is it Berenstain? We're going to find out. We're going to talk about the Mandela effect. And here it is. I am excited for today's show. Now, we've done a program once on this, but geez, I think we should do maybe 5 or 6 programs a year on this because this, to me, is one of the most interesting things that has just really come to the surface over the last few years. Many people are noticing it. I've noticed it in my life. My wife says all the time, the Mandela effect, when something strange happens. Yes, we're going to talk about that Mandela effect. There's a recent book out called The Mandela Effect, Everything is Changing. And we have the author of said book, Stasha Eriksen, on the line from Norway. And we're going to talk about this fascinating topic with Stasha. She's a researcher, spiritual teacher, author, and student of theology from Los Angeles, California. However, today she's phoning in from Norway, where she lives half of the year with her family, cats, and piles of snow. Stasha is now composing written works from her numerous years as a spiritual counselor and teacher into a series of short science fiction novels and research-based novels of a spiritual nature. You can visit her website at StashaEriksen.com. Stasha, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much, Jim. I'm so glad to be here. I really appreciate you having me on the show, and it is certainly an interesting topic. So I feel honored to be able to speak on behalf of this phenomenon.
Well, we're glad to talk to you. And I have to ask the obvious question before we get to the Mandela effect. What is the weather today, August 22nd? What is it like in Norway?
It is gorgeous. In the summertime, we have the midnight sun. So we have sun from around 2 o'clock in the morning until about midnight every night. So it's blazing, beautiful, gorgeous sun today.
Excellent. That sounds
You'd
great.
love it.
Well, a great day to talk about the Mandela effect. So what got you, well, let's start from the beginning. Maybe there are people out there who's like, the Mandela effect. What is the Mandela effect? So we'll get it right from the expert's mouth. What is the Mandela effect?
Okay, well, there's many different definitions of it at this point because the mainstream media and some other people are trying to jump on the bandwagon and kind of define it for us. But technically, the Mandela effect is kind of like a symptom where you are able to see that that reality as we know it has changed. some of the most significant things that people have noticed that have changed have been elements from history, such as the JFK assassination, very famous people's deaths, people that believed to have died many years ago are now still walking the streets, or there's been announcements of somebody dying more than once. There's a little smaller, more insignificant things as well, like logo changes, people's names changing. But essentially what's happening is that hundreds of thousands of people are having memories that they remember things one particular way. And then the other half of the world seems to remember things a totally opposite way. And those of us that have the Mandela effect, we've taken it into our own hands to start researching our memories as we remember them and collecting as much as what we call residual evidence, any proof, any old newspaper clippings, any old dolls, anything that we can get our hands on to try to prove that our memories are not something as simple as a false misremembering of memory, but that we know these things happened, and we want to get to the bottom of what could be changing reality as we know it. So that's essentially the Mandela effect in a quick nutshell, but it's very hard to summarize.
And to me, it's particularly maddening because I'll use the Berenstain Bears example, which is probably, I'm guessing, one of the more famous ones other than the idea of Nelson Mandela, which it's named after. But the Berenstain Bears, where
yes.
I think, and you correct me if I'm wrong, most people remember that being spelled with E's, Berenstain Bears.
Yes.
But now it's with an A. And countless people, probably hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people, say that was spelled with E's, and then they run to maybe they still have their childhood books. Maybe they passed them along to their kids. They go look at the bookshelf and it's an A, but it's like, wait, I remember that being an E. It's particularly maddening to try to suss out, because when you go back and look for documentation, if I'm correct, it always reverts to what you think didn't happen. Is that correct?
Yes, and that has been the biggest struggle for us researchers, is to try to scrub the internet and try to find proof of how people remember things. Now, some of the best ways that you can actually find evidence of how things used to be, it tends to be like artistic representations. You'll find a lot of people who will have drawn their favorite character from Star Wars, for instance. One of the biggest Mandela effects is that C-3PO, the robot, used to always be all gold. Now, when you look at C-3PO, he has one silver leg. So when I was working on that,
I didn't even know
character. Oh yes, there's so many, Jim. I can't even keep up with it all. And so I had to literally just find artist representations that I could find online of people with him all gold or things of that nature. So it's the research aspect of it, having Mandela effect's one thing, but the research aspect is very, very difficult, which was really how I ended up getting the book put together. It's kind of a miracle, because I tried to just really get a collection of everybody's before and after memories, and then I had to scrub the internet to just try to find little traces of proof. Now, they are out there, but it's definitely a full-time job to try to find our old memories. So it's very frustrating, and the Berenstain Bears thing happened to me too. The first video I ever made on my YouTube channel, that was the one that came across my path, and I was blown away by it. My parents read me those books every night as a kid, and I was a real spelling bee nerd, and I was really good at knowing how to spell and read and stuff like that. So that one really, really blew my mind. I knew for a fact it was Berenstain with an E, not an A. And when I checked the internet and everybody and their mother remembered it the same way that I did, I thought, okay, what is going on here? It's almost undeniable at this point, and there's been so many changes that I've been able to record just in the first book that I already have enough volumes that I'm working on a volume 2 and 3, because daily I have clients and people come to me sending me their new Mandela effects that they found, and there's so many I almost can't even keep up with it. It's really a full-time job.
Well, it's really you really blew my mind with this C-3PO, because if somebody had come to me this morning and said, C-3PO, what color is he? And I'll bet you $1,000. I'm like, well, hey, I'll be glad to take your money. He's all gold.
Yeah. Yeah. Hello. And we all remember that. I'm old enough that I was in Star Wars in the movie theater when it came out as a child. And these are we hold tight to our memories. And that's why the Mandela effect can be so frustrating for people, but yet also so easy for them to accept. Because on another Star Wars note, I don't know if you've heard this one, but one of the other biggest Star Wars changes was the infamous scene with Darth Vader and Luke Skywalker, and he's letting him know, all along that he was his father. Well, the most iconic saying that everybody, of course, knows that Darth Vader says to Luke is, "Luke, I am your father."
Right.
Right? You probably remember it that way.
I seem to remember it that way.
Now when you change it back and you play it back again, he no longer says that. He is, Darth Vader is saying, "No, I am your father." Just no. So that's blowing a lot of these Star Wars nerds' mind because they've memorized these scripts, and there's a lot of, hardcore Star Wars fans. So it's shaking up the whole community. These are very iconic things that tend to change, and that's why it's raising a few eyebrows, around the community. It's a pretty big one.
And one of my favorites is from The Field of Dreams, the great classic movie now with Kevin Costner, and about that particular Field of Dreams. And there was a quote in there that everybody was quoting for years and still quotes. Mm-hmm. And it sounds like maybe they're misquoting it, according to the Mandela.
Yeah. I know, because what is it? If you build it, they will come. And now it's if you build it, he will come.
Yeah, and I swear
it's comical.
I mean, blows me away because even though I have a lifelong interest in the paranormal and the supernatural, I still consider myself a pretty feet on the ground guy. But I remember what I remember. And I think that's a reaction of a lot of people. So we see this in not only in movies and so forth. What other kind of areas of life do we see this in? You said maybe celebrities who people thought had passed and they're still alive, those kind of things, and remembering, a press conference that maybe a certain actor or actress died or something, and then it turns out they're still alive. What other areas do we see this in?
Well, that's a big part of it. Definitely pop culture, definitely movies, actors, TV, television. But, one of the ones that's honestly shaken me up the most there have been changes to the Holy Bible. And I think that is the one that has really shooken me to the core. I've been a theology student off and on since the year 2011. And I'm actually like a biblical studies major where I'm, learning as much as I can about the Bible to write books about it. And so one of the first things that came across my path was that a very famous saying about just the Lord's Prayer, which most people know, that the Lord's Prayer had changed. And this is something that both myself and my children had said, hundreds of thousands of times. And when I realized that the Lord's Prayer changed, that one floored me completely, because it used to say, "Forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us." And now if you open up the King James Bible, which tends to be the industry standard for most Christians nowadays, what it actually says is, "Forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors." And I find that very strange, considering I didn't think debts and debtors had anything to do with the Lord's Prayer. So there's been there's a lot more Bible changes I've actually put into the book, almost so many that I don't even know where to begin. But it just makes you wonder, if it's happening in pop culture, if it's happening with actors and people's names and very famous movie quotes and characters that we know. When it starts changing something that we know, like the Holy Bible, that's when I started saying, okay, this is something serious. What is really going on here? So that one really shook me to the core. And at this point now, I think there's hundreds of Bible scripture changes that other researchers have actually found. But that one really floored me.
So,
You know?
so yeah, absolutely. Because again, if you'd asked me before this, you're bringing these new ones, or at least new for me, to my attention. It's like, yeah, I don't remember anything about debts and debtors, but wow. Now I'm going to have to go look that up. Yeah. Huh.
Yeah, I have a whole section of it in the Mandela Effect book. Towards the back, I kind of get into some different theories and some Bible changes. And yeah, I found one document alone, which was showing that over 500 words in the King James Bible had also changed and had changed their meanings completely.
Wow.
So, you know, I wasn't born a Christian or anything, but I've kind of later in life really resonated towards that direction of study.
Right.
And the more I've learned about this, it's just kind of, you know, it's really just blowing my mind. So I'm continuing on a master's right now in biblical studies because I really want to find out what's going on here. It's pretty hardcore.
So we're going to have a break in a minute. And after that break, I want to talk to you about, okay, if this is happening, what's causing it. But before we do that, give us one more that really blows your mind, that is going to drop some jaws when they hear it and when I hear it.
Okay. Oh, it's so hard at this point. There's just so many. One of the other biggest Mandela effects that absolutely blew my mind. Okay, here we go. This has definitely blown a lot of people's minds. The position of our heart within our body, within our human anatomy, okay? We've had many anatomy changes as well, which is pretty scary. But most people remember that when you were a kid in school, you would put your right hand over your heart to say the Pledge of Allegiance every day. And we kind of always assumed that our heart was over on the right. Well, now, if you check all medical books and medical standard books, our heart has actually shifted to the center of our chest. And what's even funnier is that if you go and kind of feel where your heartbeat used to be, you can go to the center of your chest and you will notice that your heartbeat now is in the middle of your chest. Now, if that won't blow your mind, I don't know what will.
Huh. Wow.
Yeah.
I always thought it was on the left side is where I thought it was, but I mean,
Oh, sorry, left side. Yeah, right hand over your heart. I meant the left side. Sorry about that. But
so
yes,
you're
it's
saying
not left nor right. It's right in the center now.
So okay, if you'd asked me 10 minutes before this, I would have said it's on the left side. And now it's in the center?
Right, yes.
Oh, wow.
It's in the center. I said it backwards because I was thinking right hand over your heart. But yes, it's on the left side is where we would normally have our heart. And now it has moved to the center. Every medical book you can find anywhere on the internet will reflect this.
Huh.
So that one definitely blew my mind.
Yeah, that is a mind blower for sure. Well, we're having a great time talking about something that's actually, in a way, quite terrifying. It's called The Mandela Effect, and we have an author of a new book on it, Stasha Eriksen. The book is The Mandela Effect. Everything is changing. And we're going to talk about maybe why it's changing right after this on the Paranormal Podcast. The Paranormal Podcast is brought to you by Gaia, the streaming TV service dedicated to exploring the cutting edge of metaphysics, ancient wisdom, and the unexplained. And keep listening because I'm going to tell you how you can get your first month of Gaia for only 99 cents. Now, streaming is a great thing. It can bring you great movies, great entertainment. It's just fantastic. And now, thanks to Gaia, there's a place not only for comedians and for, general entertainment movies and those kind of things, but there's a place on streaming for the topics we love, and that place is Gaia. And they are constantly upping their game. You can watch Gaia on all your devices, your Roku, your Apple TV, your iPhone, iPad, Chromecast, Android, Fire TV, your computer. If you're listening to me, you can watch Gaia. There's no question about it. Now, the thing about the internet and video, well, you know this. Just because there's a lot doesn't mean that it's good. And, you go into the internet looking for video on the paranormal, and, the quality is uneven to say the least. But that's not the case with Gaia. Because Gaia, they do two things. One, they create fantastic original content with the greatest thinkers in these areas. And then also, they add into the mix, they curate, and they go out and they look for some of the best content done by video producers, and they bring it into Gaia, and what a beautiful mosaic it makes. And every week, they tell me about everything new coming. For example, we told you about Eric von Däniken, the guy behind the idea of aliens coming here in ancient times. His show, Beyond the Legend, episode 4, is now available only on Gaia. This week, Eric von Däniken looks at angelic ETs of the ancient world. He invites us to take a new look at ancient scriptures to gain a new understanding of divine intervention upon historic events. And I think that you're going to enjoy that program. I have thus far. What I've seen of it, just really, really interesting, coming from the legend himself, Eric von Däniken. False Flags with Richard Dolan continues. Interesting one here, False Flags and Regime Change. With the end of the Second World War, the U.S. and Soviet Union began a Cold War for global dominance. Both sides engaged in tactics to convince people that they needed to submit to ever-increasing levels of authority for their own protection. So you'll find out about that with Richard. And also a new one. It's a little outside of the paranormal, but certainly towards the unusual, the unknown, and something that's very mysterious. It's called Bilderberg, the movie. It's a documentary film about the origins, development, and expansion of one of the most elitist and secret organizations in the world today, the Bilderberg Group. So you can check that out as well. Gaia, they have it all. You're absolutely going to love it. I know you do. If you're listening to this show, you're going to love it. So you can try it out now for only 99 cents. But first, do this. Go over to Gaia.com/Jim. That's GAIA.com/Jim. There, I've handpicked some videos, and you get a chance to kind of get a flavor of what Gaia is all about. And I am absolutely convinced when you watch those free videos, you're going to say, Jim is right. This is very cool, and I want this. It's a video buffet for the topics we love. So go to Gaia.com/Jim, watch those videos, and after you're done, find that little red button that says sign up and try your first month for only 99 cents. You're absolutely going to enjoy it. I want you to check it out. Visit Gaia.com/Jim. That's GAIA.com/Jim to see what's happening on the largest consciousness media streaming platform in the world. Thanks, Gaia. We're back on the Paranormal Podcast. Wow, is this a fascinating conversation? Nothing to do with me. It has all to do with our guest, Stasha Eriksen. And the book is The Mandela Effect. Everything is changing. And I don't know if you could tell by my tone, I am really fascinated by this. Now, is it real? You know, I'm still up in the air on it, but boy, a lot of these things, I remember them in column A, and it turns out they're in column B. And Stasha has already supplied a couple that I didn't know about that, like, what? So we're going to talk to her about why. So Stasha, getting back to the Mandela effect, we've talked about what happens. So what are some of the theories of why this strange thing is happening to us?
Okay, well, there is a lot of them. In fact, there's so many theories. When I wrote the book, I had to just kind of pick the top 10 that were the most popular, because at this point we have about 100 different theories floating around out there. But the main, I'll kind of touch on the main ones that most people believe are causing this. Now, I'm sure probably on your paranormal research path, you've probably heard about a company known as CERN.
Oh,
have
yes.
You heard of CERN
yes,
before?
We've heard of CERN. Yes,
scientific
absolutely.
research. Okay, so CERN, for those who don't know, is a scientific research facility in Geneva, Switzerland. And essentially, they are the company or the scientists that went looking for the God particle back in 2011. Now, a lot of people believe that CERN are doing a heck of a lot more than just looking for the God particle out there. They believe that they have access to time machines, which are essentially set up through a network known as the D-Wave computer. And these D-Wave computers are essentially supercomputers that kind of have a consciousness, like an AI. Now, it's really high-tech scientific stuff, but long story short, if CERN were actually using their facilities for time travel, it makes us think back to, like, the movie Back to the Future with Marty McFly. And one of the main rules was is if you went back into the past, you couldn't touch anything, or you couldn't change anything, or you couldn't do anything at all besides observe the past, because if you changed even one small little thing, it would change the future. So what some people believe in the Mandela effect community, they believe that CERN has been using their facility as a time travel machine and going back in time and changing certain events in history just to see what would happen, or maybe just because they can. So if one of these guys, let's say a certain scientist said, let's go back and change it to where Nelson Mandela never died in the 80s. We're going to make Nelson Mandela die in the year 2013, and let's see if the world's a better place for him to be, in our lives a lot longer. That could be one example of what's happening. So this could essentially be a symptom of time travel. Now, I know that seems pretty far-fetched, but in a way it kind of makes sense. And you notice how Hollywood set us up with these ideas by making movies like Back to the Future and kind of getting that understanding into our mind of, well, if you go back in time, don't change anything or you'll change the future. So that tends to be the number one theory that people are bumping around right now, that time travel is actually causing these symptoms. Now, there is another aspect of that as well, which is pretty hardcore, and that's that people basically believe that the changes that we're seeing is due to Satan himself coming down and changing everything to his kind of way. So there's a lot of people that have actually signed up and believing that this is a very spiritual attack kind of on humanity and on our planet, that this is all coming from witchcraft or Satanism or different rituals that satanic people do. So these are kind of two totally different worlds. You got the people who believe it's time travel, but then you also have people believe that this is some type of black magic. That's another side of it. So you can see where when people are on the page of theories, we're coming from all different directions here. And I'd say the third and most popular, definitely most popular theory that most people believe is that we could possibly have just merged with what is known as a parallel reality. And I'm sure you've probably talked about that on some of your shows
the
before,
multiverse and so forth, yeah.
Exactly. So that tends to be the most popular one I see people leaning towards, is that our universe very well may have merged with another very similar universe, one that looks just like ours, the people are just like us, but maybe things are just slightly a little bit different, almost like an old Doctor Who episode or something like that. And if we were merging with another reality or another dimension, then some of that dimension and reality would bleed into ours. So we could very well be watching the version of Star Wars that's from, let's say, parallel Earth A, and really all of us have been from parallel Earth B all along. And so we're starting to see this kind of merging or collapsing of multiverses and different dimensions, and that could very well be a symptom of what's going on as well. So those are kind of like the top three. I'm still on the fence about all of it. As a researcher, I try to stay very, unbiased throughout the whole presentation when I'm writing the books, and really still weighing it out there. But there's definitely something going on, definitely something. So those are the top three, the top three theories at this point. But there's a lot more. It gets pretty deep when it comes to theories.
So to me, kind of the dividing point of those two, or one of the dividing points, might be the idea that this is something that's happening accidentally, or this is something happening malevolently or maliciously. Can you talk about the juxtaposition there? I mean, is this an accident? Is this a cosmic accident? Is it an accident because these people have been looking for the God particle and maybe causing some unintended consequences? Because we know that happens. You start out with a very good aim and it causes other problems that you didn't think about. Or is it people, whether, in the way out there case, Satan, or I feel like the church lady when I say it, Satan? Is it?
I almost felt like this too when I said it.
Could it be Satan? No, I don't know. But is it Satan, or is it scientists saying, well, we don't like this thing about history, so we're going to change it? And somebody said, well, actually, I'd like see 3PO better if he had a silver leg. I mean, talk about the difference between an accident versus intentional.
It's a really good point that you put up. That's the thing. I think 50% of it could be the whole accident vibe. If they're like going and changing things on purpose, they might think, oh, okay, we're just going to change this one little thing, but nothing else will get affected. Well, I think the accident could have been that they changed one thing, but then it caused a ripple effect of other things changing. So that, I believe, could be an accidental element to what ended up unfolding with this. However, I did like what you said about the God particle thing, because I believe that when they searched for that God particle, and they said they found it, I believe there's a very good chance that they could have opened up, let's say, like a tear in the atmosphere, or a tear in, almost like opening up a portal in the universe. And if you kind of recreate the Big Bang and you recreate God, so to speak, whether it's artificial or whatever, you're probably going to start allowing some other really intense energies to make their way onto the planet. And so it may not have been intended for, let's say, quote unquote, Satan to have caused this. But if those scientists were messing around with God particles and they opened up a portal or ripped a hole in time and space, then there's a very good chance that some nefarious beings from other dimensions could have made their way into us, and that may not have been a plan at all. And this could be, again, the parallel world theory, where we're merging in with some outside influence or some outside beings or an outside race. So it really could kind of be a combination of all of these things. You know, if they opened up the scientific door, they ripped a hole in the universe. And if you do believe in God, you kind of have to believe in the opposite effects too. So maybe something more negative was brought into this planet that was never meant to be. And now we're kind of seeing a merging of our world with theirs. So it's really hard to see, because I don't think anybody would do this on purpose, because too many people are noticing all of the clues now. That's the other thing. And it's giving us a full-time job connecting the dots. Part of the universe, I feel like, is supporting me in opening up these doors and answering these questions and asking these questions, where another part of the universe I feel like is blocking me, as if like they don't want me to let the world know that they've made a mistake or something to that nature also. So it's really still hard to say. And as I even finished volume 1, I really decided I still had to keep going with writing about this. So right now I'm writing volume 2 and volume 3, because there's just so much more to the whole shebang. I can't figure out really how it started or how it ended or who's causing it until I continue to collect stories. I have a lot of people sending me stories from all over the world, personal stories, and I'm trying to just give this whole thing a voice and really get to the bottom of it. I wish that I could just sit here and say, I know what's causing it, and this is why it's happening, and this is who did it. But I'm hoping that with these books, we will get those answers eventually. And that's truly what I hope for, because it's definitely a hard thing to explain.
Well, it's frightening, because if you think about it, and I don't know that this has been reported, but if movie quotes are changing, or people are, let's say, alive who used to be past, it could go in that example, it could go maybe in the opposite direction. Maybe somebody dies who was alive, or maybe somebody doesn't even come into existence, they could be erased from existence if this is really going on. Yeah. Are there any reports of anything like that?
There's been quite a few reports, and this is going to go into my second book. I'm getting a lot deeper into the death mystery, because I've actually heard a lot of accounts from everyday people. I haven't heard so many about like celebrities and stuff yet, but I've had personal clients email me and say things like, okay, this may seem very strange, but I've known my neighbor down the street for 50 years, and this man has been dead for at least 10 years. He was an old man. And the other day, I'm walking to go get the mail, and he walks right past me, says hello to me, and checks his mail and goes right back into the house as if the man had never died. Now, this woman swore to me that this man had been dead for more than 10 years, that it was impossible for him to still be living, yet one day there he was, and he's been back ever since. So maybe some of these things have gone and, like, brought people back from the dead as well. Some people maybe fell to never exist, and then maybe some people are just rising again. So that's very strange also. I've heard more accounts from people telling me stuff like that, like, oh, I know my neighbor was dead and I saw her yesterday. I've actually had a few of those emails come my way, so I'm trying to get permission from the people who sent them to me to share their stories in the next book, because that type of stuff blows my mind. I haven't witnessed anything like someone I thought was dead being alive again, but a lot of people have. So that's, to me, pretty significant.
Absolutely. So we as regular people, everyday people, we're not scientists at a large organization. We're not heads of state, those kind of people. What can we do? What should we do about this? Because, it's kind of a cool thing to talk about, but if it's real, it's terrifying. And generally, I would say it is a bad thing. Of course, it's great that Nelson Mandela lived longer and was able to become president of South Africa and fight for justice and all that. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. And there might be some good things come out of this, but it would seem to me that in general, if something is the way it is, it's probably not good to change it. All you have to do is watch any time travel movie. You should never change anything because you screw up the rest of history. So is there anything we can do, or should we just remain vigilant and talk about this?
Well, what I suggest for people to do is I really suggest for people to, especially if they've never heard about the Mandela effect before, they can just go on my website. I have a video blog full of hundreds of videos that I've done on the effect. I have a YouTube channel with hundreds of videos on the effect. The best thing to do for anybody who's hearing about this for the first time is just to start researching the anomaly. Try to avoid researching it on pages like Wikipedia, because on Wikipedia they're really trying to kind of discredit the Mandela effect and basically call it confabulation theory, which means that it's just a bunch of people misremembering things wrong. But this has gone beyond people remembering things wrong. So first, I would say for people to educate themselves, definitely check out my book, because it's the first paperback of its kind that is research-based and putting the Mandela effect in a positive light, where some of the other books you might find out there are trying to debunk it or make some of us look, uncredible. So once you've kind of done some research, I think the best thing you can do is just start asking your friends and family. Like, make a little list of like the top 10 Mandela changes that affect you. And just start asking people in your life, your mom, your dad, your brother, your sister, people on the street. Start taking notice of this. And if we do it kind of gently and we reawaken our memories and we can keep records of this, then the most important thing we can really do is hold on to our memories. And if we can just remember how things were, then that means we're staying true to who we are as people. And even if they keep changing everything around us, we'll still have our memories. The other thing I would really suggest for people to do is just, if they can make their own YouTube videos about this type of topic, if they're interested, the more information we get out there in a positive light, and the more people that are willing to share their true story and their true Mandela effect stories, this will be taken seriously. And eventually somebody's going to have to raise their hand and say, okay, you know what? It was us. Eventually we will get to the bottom of this, I think. So I think awareness is the best thing, and sharing these effects with friends and family, and really just, getting as involved as you can. But the main thing I try to tell people overall in my videos and in my books is I keep the theme of don't be afraid. Because the main thing is if we get really freaked out, oh my God, my heart's changed, the Bible changed, some of this stuff is heavy. If we get lost in the fear of it, that could be part of what the nefarious agenda is. And we don't want to give into that. The best thing we can do is give ourselves knowledge and wisdom. And the more we know and the more we understand, that is how we can make a change and get to the bottom of this. So education and just sharing it with everybody you know.
Well,
we got to get to the bottom of it.
Well, I agree. And on these shows, we love stories and examples. So before we go, can we have one more mind-blowing example of the Mandela effect?
Okay. This one really blew my mind. Now, I'm a big science buff. I'm not a scientist, but I do like to keep an eye on scientists and what's going on in that world. And NASA makes me raise a lot of eyebrows. So I've talked a lot about them in my book also. But one of the main Mandela effects that totally blew my mind was that the position of our ourselves and our planet Earth within the Milky Way galaxy has changed. Now, the main reason I'm going to bring this one up is because I have proof, and I also have proof of it in the book. Now, you know Neil deGrasse Tyson, I'm sure.
Of course.
Okay. So he has a weekly show or podcast called Star Talk that he does.
Yep.
And he was the only one I was able to find evidence of him telling us where we used to be located in the universe. Now, how I remembered it is that we were located in what is known as the Sagittarius arm of the Milky Way galaxy. So I was watching a Star Trek episode, and Neil deGrasse Tyson, at the beginning of the show, he did say, yes, we are located in the Milky Way galaxy on the Sagittarius arm. Well, about a year later, after I saw that program, I went on to Google, and I just simply typed in, where are we located in the universe? And Google has informed myself and hundreds of other people, if you just go on and ask them now, and they will tell you that we are now located in what is known as the Orion Spur of the Milky Way galaxy. Now, the Orion Spur is the exact opposite of where the Sagittarius arm is located in the Milky Way galaxy. So if we have somehow, if the parallel world thing could be true, we've essentially completely moved positions from one side of the universe to the other. And I even have Neil deGrasse Tyson on video proving it. That's my biggest residual evidence I could find. So if you ask a scientist where we're located and they say Sagittarius arm, you can blow their mind and say, why don't you go double check, because we are now in the Orion Spur.
Now, I'll ask you just one last question, then we want to tell people where they can go and maybe share their experiences, find out more about everything you do. There are a few people out there, maybe there are many people out there, say, Stasha, this is just people misremembering things. People, you know, they've got a million things going on. They forget a line in a movie. They forget that C-3PO was part silver. You know, it's just faulty memory. It's just human nature. And this is just because the internet and somebody brought it up on a Reddit forum or somewhere, and it's just kind of gone viral. What would you say to that person?
Well, I get it every day. I get an email like that every single day. And what I say is, it's too undeniable at this point. There are too many clues. If it was just one movie line, if it was just one person's name changing, if it was just one person's death, I could accept that. I could accept even for myself that I could misremember something in life. I don't have the best memory in the world. But when undeniable aspects like the location of your heart, and when you open up your Bible and your favorite passage in scripture of the Lord's Prayer is changed, that's when I say it can no longer just be a misremembering anymore. And when thousands and thousands of people contact me from all over the world on a daily basis with different stories and the same memories, then I say it's way beyond just a faulty memory. There's something much deeper going on here. It's too numerous now to deny.
Stasha, where can everybody go and find out more information about everything you do, more about the Mandela effect, and how to submit their own stories?
Well, the best way to do it is just to go to my website, which is StashaEriksen.com. There is a tab on my website called Books, and on there you can see I've actually self-published 3 books at this point. I have a couple on conspiracy theories and animal communication and some other things like that. But you can find the link to the Mandela Effect book there. I also have an ongoing GoFundMe page. Since all the books are self-published, usually my readers and my subscribers, they help donate so that I can put these books together, because without a publishing deal, it's pretty expensive to make books. So people can also find the tab for the GoFundMe page for the next 2 volumes of the Mandela Effect that I'll be releasing very shortly, and that's volumes 2 and 3. I also have a contact page and a video blog on that site as well, where you can just send me your story. You can contact me directly. You can watch my videos there and on YouTube. And I get a little busy at times. I do get a lot of submissions, but I'm really interested in getting as many real people involved into these book series as possible. The entire first book is all people from YouTube, Reddit, and personal emails. So anybody that contacts me, and if your story is legitimate, and especially if you have some proof along with it, like pictures or evidence of all, I would love to have anybody out there included in these next couple of books, because I really want this to be all about us. And we will get to the bottom of it. The more that get involved, we will get answers. I'm confident, 100%.
Well, very interesting stuff, Stasha, and I can tell you this, you've made me think, and I'm sure you've made many people out there think as well. And we appreciate you appearing on the Paranormal Podcast today.
Thank you so much, Jim. It was my pleasure, and I'd love to come back anytime.
What a fascinating topic. That's one I think you're going to be hearing a lot from in this quarter.